Hello and welcome to this most unusual year of study at the University of Westminster. My name is Adam Samuel. I'm what we call a part-time visiting lecturer, PTVL, which means that I have a day job on top of what I do for the university. I'm here ostensibly to do a presentation on my option module, Comparative Commercial Arbitration, which takes place in January. But I'm also here with another motive, which is to try and persuade you to select your options in an intelligent way. It may be the last time you get a chance to study at master's level, so don't waste it. Select subjects that fascinate you. Try and find teachers that are interesting to you, that you find attractive, that have viewpoints on the world that will enlighten you, add a whole new element to your studies. Don't take the easy option. Don't select the course that everybody says involves least work. We hear every year of students who regret not taking certain options because they've already used up their allocation. And they turn around to you later and say, oh, I really wish I could have taken your module. It would have been perfect for me. So, comparative commercial arbitration, what do I mean by that? Well, this course begins or ends at the frontier of Richard Earle's course on international commercial arbitration. He deals with arbitration under English law. I deal with arbitration under everybody else's legal system. At least that's the plan. In practice, we're all comparative lawyers. If you have a law degree from another country and you're studying at the University of Westminster, you have already become a comparative lawyer. In practice, it's fairly rare to get through a career without having to deal with more than one legal system. Some lawyers do, but even then, when there's a huge gap in the legal system, and there quite often are these types of holes, then good lawyers turn to other countries and find out what the courts or even the legislation in those countries think is the right answer to the problem. So the comparative law method has been built in much of modern lawyering. As for arbitration, well, it fits the gap, or it fills the gap between the rights you have and the ability to get your hands on the money or the solution to your problem. It's one thing to say that you are entitled to damages for breach of contract. It's quite another thing to collect them. And arbitration may be the mechanism through which you do that collecting. You may find yourself having to draft an arbitration clause as you set up an agreement. A number of lawyers I know who've never studied arbitration properly, who don't therefore know how to draft an arbitration clause, is fairly shocking, but true. So with that all in mind, this course starts off with a discussion of the basics of international arbitration and practice, and also theory and history. And we do an early assessment, an essay, which covers that and jurisdictional issues, typically around week 6 or 7, though often we've gone past that point in the study. It's worth 30% of the grade. The rest of the grade is assessed in a second in-class test, assuming we have in-class tests by the second semester, and that is a problem exam. And you don't really need to write essays, but you do need to be able to read the question, isolate the issues, identify the relevant legal systems and materials that you need to answer your question. The countries we actually deal with in practice include the big ones. The big four are respectively France, Switzerland, England, and the USA. These have had more International Chamber of Commerce cases than any other. That's not the only type of arbitration, of course, but it does represent a reasonable sample. We'll also inevitably have to deal with other European countries like Germany, Sweden, Holland, Belgium. Beyond that, we'll be very interested in the UNCITRAL model law, which was originally designed actually as an off-the-shelf arbitration statute for countries to adopt, that was put together by the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, UNCITRAL, but ultimately has been picked up by a wide variety of different countries, many of whom were rather more sophisticated than the original intended audience of the Unstral model law. There are two different versions of the model law. We're going to have to study both of them. And we'll pretty much treat it as if it's one country, when in fact it probably represents 30 or 40 or perhaps more than that. We'll follow the arbitration process all the way through, from drafting the agreement, as I said, up to enforcement. And that's not just knowing some law, you've got to know some practice. We'll try to mock up an arbitration, show you what it really looks like and how it feels. You're invited to bring coffee and lunch, because that's what happens at real international arbitrations. And hopefully that will give you an insight into how the arbitral process actually works. Beyond that, well, I'm hoping that in the second semester, the lockdown will have eased enough that we'll all be able to meet up. You're actually studying in one of the greatest neighborhoods to study in the world. I know it sounds a bit odd, but I have been around quite a few countries, and Fitzrovia is a marvelous neighborhood full of exciting and interesting things. And I hope to be able to lead a student walking tour of the area, at least before you've completed your studies. It's the most fascinating of neighborhoods. That just leaves me to thank you for watching this video and to wish you the very, very best in your studies. I hope you have a great year that changes your life for the better in all kinds of important ways that you're only about to discover. Thank you.